We're up to. Welcome to another session in the soft and systems side to sales with myself, my good friend Jason. Talk about everything there is to know about building the process and the touch points and the benefits to ensure you get the best out of your process to deliver a sale. So today we're going to talk about, are you selling or are you solving problems? Welcome, everyone. And before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge obviously, there's been a lot of sad news yesterday with the death of Her Majesty the Queen. And just out of respect for Jason, I just want to pass on my condolences to you and your friends, your colleagues, and your countrymen. It's a very sad day.
Yeah, it is. It took me back yesterday, just like wow, sudden overwhelm of sadness, but overwhelm of huge respect for what she's done for not only Britain but the rest of the world. How she's impacted on leaders, seriously top leaders, and she just holds her own. And she's such powerful, and every single person globally respects what she's done and respects her point of view. And the point is, from 7 decades of wisdom and knowledge, that is just phenomenal. We can all learn from everything that she's done and take it on board and go, wow, that's just incredible. So 7 decades of just pure relentlessness, and just shows vulnerability to ourselves, but it also shows like even when you're maybe at your weakest point, you still show up. And like she was very frail on Monday when she met the new prime minister, but the point is she showed up.
She showed up, yeah.
And wow, that's a lesson for us all, is to show up even against adversity. So let's relate this back to sales. But we are talking about are you selling or problem solving? But it's to show up at the right time. It's to show up and show what it's like for the other person, to sit in their shoes, learn from them, as opposed to telling.
Well, that's exactly it, Jason. Like, and again, I totally see that it's all about leadership, right? And obviously relating that back from what you said about the Queen, showed great leadership, which, by the way, is not ending. That's her legacy will be moved forward. And again, relating that back to sales, like everything is all about the other person, showing up for the other person, Jason. And that's what I always like to differentiate. You can create a buying, like a sales process that you want to do, and that's all well and good. But once you've built that sales process, you have to turn that into a prospect journey experience, because it's about their needs. It's not about you getting the sale for your benefit, for your company's benefit. It's how you get that problem solved for your potential customer, because that is the goal. The goal is to solve the problem. The consequences of the problem is business for you. So focus on the goal, focus on them, build that experience, Jason. And you, like, I don't need to tell you about the importance of generating really valuable touch points along that journey. So please share some of your best thoughts on what you do during those touch points.
Obviously, number one thing is touch point is find something relatable. Like, this is impact. Find rapport with the client. Find something that both interests. Have a not casual conversation, but people like themselves. And we know that connection is absolutely key. We've spoken about trust and credibility as well. Like, they should have known who you are before that, but if not, you show your expertise of knowing the customer, knowing the industry, knowing everything, challenges even before you meet them, meaning you've done your due diligence, you've done your research. Okay, you might have spoken to them on the phone, but they know that you know what you're talking about for the start. So that, I think that's one of the core things that you do. It's the first thing to get over that initial hurdle of understanding who they are, maybe understanding what there is, and maybe a challenge. So you just websites, Twitter, social media, depend on the size or how small the company actually is, or you might know of industry issues and challenges that might be relative to that particular client.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, Jason. I like that you brought up the fact that it's not about actually the first point of contact with them. You've a lot of work to do pre-meeting them. You need to know the market pains, you need the company pains, and the person you're meeting, you need to know their pains within all of that, Jason. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And what I like to say, Jason, on these points, I talk about friendships in business all the time. Because what do friends do? Look out for each other. And it's the same for sales. I always say, if you're a salesperson going to try and sell something to a potential client, treat them like a friend. Because what do friends do? Friends look out for their friends, right? They'll ask if there's something wrong, they go, what is your problem? How can I help you? And focus on that sort of friendship relationship style, because then you'll do these things naturally. Because Jason, they're things you naturally do. Friends do the same in business, because everything is all about building relationships. One of the first things I like to do when I meet Jason, and again, I would do this naturally, and I got this from my dad, because we like to talk. We just like to talk, right? But what I've learned through the studies, that it's very important to correlate relationships from the beginning. It's not about going in, okay, look, we have these products, we have these services, let's get stuck in.
Who cares?
Who cares? They care about what you can do for them. They care about seeing, can you provide that service for them? And that starts with building a relationship, them finding out what type of person you are. So when I develop conversations, I wait till they try and change this conversation to what that needs to be talked about. I leave it to them, because they're inviting you into talk, Jason. And that's what happens when you're talking with friends.
Yeah, absolutely. That you ask them the good open questions. I was actually thinking while I was I went into the new Lego store in Dublin the other day, and my experience, which is phenomenal. You had someone greeting you, welcome you, getting you out the rain, because it was raining. But what they did is they got some bags, and as they came in with the brollies and anything, they said, can I look after you here? And they put all of the stuff into a plastic bag, and you walked around with a plastic bag, or they held it there for you, and you're allowed to put your coats up and your wet stuff. And then they allowed you to observe, but then they were telling you about all interesting stuff and asking you questions about what you like and what you don't like, and how I was with my son at the time. But it was a glorious moment, and ironically ended up buying some stuff because it was the right place at the right time. But I just felt really good and empowered. And even afterwards, I wrote some stuff about them because I felt good inside.
That's amazing.
That's exactly what we're doing here, is valuing the person, valuing the company, making sure that you do whatever you can beyond expectations to make them feel good. And it is a feeling that you're transferring from one person to another.
Exactly. It is. And we mentioned the words, it's experiential, Jason. It's all about giving people really positive experiences. There is no bulletproof goal or process or endpoint in a sales situation, Jason, but you have to be able to walk away saying, you did everything you possibly could. And by doing so, it's focusing on them, making sure they have all the information. They know you make them the hero of the journey. You're the guide. you bring them on that journey, that experience. And then through that process, they will see if you're self-centered or them-centered. And I think that's a really important distinction, because I keep saying it. The goal is not for you to get a sale. The goal is to solve the problem. The consequence of you solving the problem is the sale for you and your business.
I was actually thinking of, while you were speaking about that, is to create a narrative around them, create a narrative around other customers that have had similar challenges and they came through it, and now they become a trusted advisor within the organization. So you show them, but you also make them onto a journey of other people's experiences of you. And sometimes you go a little bit vulnerable with that as well. So look, other people did have those challenges. Like, we didn't necessarily get it right all the time, but what we did do is we solved their problems and challenges along the way. And what actually happened is, at the end of it, as a result, there are nice, happy customers. Obviously, you create the narrative, but make sure that if you do create that narrative, is relevant to their industry, not just the general one that you've had with someone that's not relative to that industry. Make sure that they know. Make sure that even if they know the company as well, so they understand to go, oh, right, you know them as well. Excellent. Which is a point of reference to them, because it could be a similar type of challenge to them. But also find out their story as well, so they can create their own narrative. One thing that I've always been taught is, once you do ask Stretch some questions, is to obviously tell me more about that. And once they do that, they can highlight more and more about the challenges that they're facing, as if you were sitting in their seat.
Exactly, Jason. And to that point, when I'm developing these conversations, right? So, say for example, you have maybe 3 to 4 touch points along that journey, right? One is
Mm,
probably a call, there could be a few meetings, then a presentation for the final proposal, for example, right?
mm,
So, I want to make sure before I go into any of those situations, whether it's a call or a meeting, I know what my focus should be. And
mm,
again, it's to get me out of that self centered focus and focus on them. So I prayed a little bit of a, I wouldn't say in a, like a soft, subtle, subconscious agenda, but just the key points to ensure my focus stays on them. And I do that by asking key questions, Jason. You mentioned one of them there about challenges, right? The 3 things I like to figure out is, what is their goals?
yep,
Okay. What are their goals? What are their aspirations over the next 12 months?
yep.
Okay. And make it relatable to them, both the business and then to their whatever area within that business. And then along that, I asked a question about, well, how are you going to get there? What's the plan? How are you going to achieve it? How are you going to execute and get there? And then I go, what challenges do you think you're going to face
Mm.
along the journey? Because they're the 3 areas that I believe I can really sort of help them in that journey to achieve what they need to achieve.
Something that I've done in the past is, if you're, because we're in the hybrid world, you can do it either way. So if you're driving to a location and you're meeting someone, is get there early, 30 minutes early. That's what I've very prompt with my timing. Get there early, sit in the car, and just review what you might say, some questions to ask,
Mm,
maybe some objections that you
yeah.
might come up with. Have it as a checklist to go, put it in your book and go, I might say this, I might say this, I might say this. These are some of the core things that they might object to. These are some of the other things that we could ask. These are the other areas of concerns, and just try and just sense check it all. Like, exactly like you said, but it's just good to sit down and plan, just pre-plan, but remind yourself what you could possibly say and what could possibly come up in the
Mm.
conversation. So it's all about planning.
Oh yeah, pre-planning, Jason. And in Ireland, we call this. I always prepare for the Murphy Law questions. That's what I do before any big meeting, whether it's a director meeting, whether it's a project meeting, whether it's a sales meeting. It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
it's a big meeting, an important meeting, Jason. I do the Murphy's Law. What are the worst questions I can get asked? You'll never get them all. You'll probably get 70 to 80% of them, but at least when you get a curveball question thrown
Yeah.
at you, and if you can look sharp answering a question that makes them think or believe that you know what you're talking about. And that's all pre-planning. Is I think it's a really good call out, because, and that should happen before every meeting along that journey, Jason.
Yeah.
What are the questions and how do you plan the journey of the meeting? And again, I always say, make them the hero and you the guide. You're supporting their journey through to the end.
Yeah, I've suggested this before, is even sending something in advance. Like we all hate death by PowerPoint. So like send them a deck in advance, go, like, you have a deck, review that. If you have any questions and that, come to it. I'm not going to kill you off by PowerPoint or whatever. So you have that and you can question me about anything. So they have everything already in advance. And anything else that they might need. And maybe in the email invitation is that these are the things that I might ask you, just so we both prepared. Is there anyone else in the conversation that might need to be here, just so I can find out a lot more about maybe some challenges, concerns, and just preempt as much as you can and just help them as well along the way, just to make it easier for you.
And that's a really good point, Jason. And what got me thinking there as well, like, it's really important to communicate with them between those touch points, right? When you've done that first discovery meeting or call, like, you're going to create your notes. And I have this really holistic template that I use. And it's literally, Jason, of all the meetings I've ever done, all the different permutations that I could be valuable to this customer. And I make sure it's just fill in the blanks. So I know when I walk away from that meeting, I've got all the information I do. Once I've like consolidated that into a good email, I send it on and thank them for their time. And just to confirm, this is what I got out of the meeting. This is what I believe your goals, your challenges are in your roadmap. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That's really important on two levels, Jason. And again, I think it's just good manners to do that first and foremost. But psychologically, if you've done your job, you've got all that information right, they're going to come back to you and say, yes, thank you very much. This is spot on. You've collected the first yes, which is really psychologically important in a sales process. But again, I know it's not to manipulate, Jason, but it's also to show them that you're listening, you're paying attention. You didn't just weren't there and here. You were actively listening to them and really deep listening to them to ensure you fully understand their problems. I think that's on a subconscious level, it's so important.
Yeah, and again, while you're there, obviously take the notes. Like for me, you don't remember everything. Something that I was taught is, even before the meeting, is it okay if I record this? Because there might be some things that I might not have asked in the meeting, but you've come up with something that I might need to ask you at a later stage. Is that okay? Look, it's more for me than it is for you, just so I can do my job better. And then I can maybe ask you some questions, or alternatively, you can ask me. I'm more than happy to just share this document with you as well, and share as much as you can with them. As you suggested, if you're taking notes in the follow-up email, share the notes, share a document with them. This is the first meeting, this is the first steps, these are the suggestions, and maybe the next meeting we will carry on with whoever else, the CEO or whoever else might be within the decision-making process or the influencing process, or depending on what you're working on and the technology that you're actually with. So there's lots of different facets that we can go on, but it does depend on the size, or if it's an SME or whoever.
Yeah. Well, it's a really good one, Jason. I've never done it myself, but I've actually seen people, I've been involved, and people respectfully ask me, is it okay? And I absolutely, and I purposes for that as well, other key areas where that could be useful, because it also keeps people honest in meetings as well, that there's a recording of stuff, and I can see other applications for it too. But other things I like to consider, Jason, right? And again, if you know, we've talked about before, this, like, if you're starting from scratch in that sales process, it's the most expensive and costly sale in the game, because you're starting from literally lead generation all the way through. You got to make sure not only are you not wasting your time, but more importantly, you're not wasting their time. So it's really important to get clarity. Is this something they're interested in or not, as early as possible in the funnel? And again, if you're putting them first, other people centered, you don't want to be wasting their time. So it's very important to get that in the nicest possible way to stop and don't waste their time. And I think that's really important.
And don't get too excited too quickly, especially when you see the buying signals, but you haven't covered everything, and you go straight into closing, and they're not ready. And there's like we've all been there and seen it, done it, but all of a sudden you get the buying signals. Oh yeah, that would be really good, and whatever else that they might be saying, it looks quite positive there. But it's just to understand at the right time when you need to actually go, well, okay, let's go into the next step, or whatever that might look and feel like. But don't get too eager too quickly, and don't get too excited, because we all get there and go, hey, excellent, we got a deal here, and all of a sudden you just go into selling mode, and the whole thing is just out the window, and you're selling to the wrong person.
I've been there. I'm laughing to myself here, Jason, because I've been there. I've gotten so excited prematurely about these things. And then you're just, first of all, you're disappointed, but you're more disappointed because you made mistakes in the journey. And it's a double smack in the face. So look, Jason, we're coming up in time here, as always. And these minutes always go so fast when we chat. But if you were to sum it up in, let's try and keep it to 1.5 points this time, Jason.
It can always be 5 points here. Respect them, respect their time, but respect your own time. Go through a practice, a system, a process of questions that you think will come up, and create a narrative, and always sit in their shoes.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better, Jason. Be respectful, be other people centered and not self-centered. That's my addition to your great comment. So look, Jason, thanks very much for your time. As always, it's always a pleasure. And to everyone that's watching and listening or going to watch it later, thanks. And if you have any questions, both myself and Jason will be delighted to answer anything you have. In the meantime, have a great day.
Take care.